y'all not too bad. You know that? I love you guys. Good stuff. We have a few things to kind of dive into before we get started with today's message. A few things going on. First, we were going to do this in a sneak out fashion, but I think it's better to just tell you about it. One of the things that Jake, who has been learning and growing as a leader, we've been so thrilled and just impressed with a lot of things in your life, young man, is that there are churches all over Western Kentucky that call him fairly regularly and say, hey, will you come preach for us? Will you come speak for us? And I'm the mean old guy that goes, don't do that, dude. Stay here. We need you to be a part of this. Like, hang out here. But this month, there's a particular church in Livingston County that needs him really well. And so he actually going to be, are you going to be there 3 out of 4 Sundays, I think? He's going to be there 4 consecutive weeks over the next month. But he's agreed to come here and hang out with us a bit because, we're those folks who get up early, drink 2 cups of coffee, and come to church at 9:30. And he's going to be speaking in a place where they sleep in late and then get to church at 11, So Jake, we love you, brother. Whenever you do have to head out, we're not going to pick on you for leaving early. We know you got to do that. Okay, we're proud of you and excited about what God's doing. What did you say you were going to be in 1 John? Is that right? Preaching through 1 John this month? Cool. Very good thing. Secondly, it's that time of year when students in school and even more importantly, teachers get excited about the fact that the school year is almost over. Summer is almost here. That's right. I'm getting big smiles from people who work in education. And one of the things we do at that time every year is we try to bring some honor and just really celebrate our graduates. Because when someone has put in the work, they've put in the time, they've gotten to the end of their 12th grade, they're graduating, and then they have kind of plans for what's going on next, we want to know about those plans. We want to celebrate with them. And today, I got to tell you, maybe the person in this room who wants to come up on stage least of everybody here is Miss Remington Parks, who we adore. She's been an active part of the youth group for the last year and a half. I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about herself. But Remington, come join us up here. And you guys give her a hand because she's taking a big step. So, Remy's not crazy about this, which is like part of me wants to like have everybody stare at her and just see how awkward we can make it. But she made a video. We were going to do a video and make it easier on her. And this morning she basically said, hey, I'd rather do this live. So we're doing it live. So this is yours. Thanks. Why don't you say hi and tell us, a couple sentences about yourself.
Hey guys, I'm Remington. I'm graduating in 19 days. I go to McCracken County High School and I will be graduating with honors grads, chords and academic team, drama, culinary, and FCCLA. And then in the fall, I will be going to Sullivan University in Louisville to study a degree in baking and pastry arts and hospitality management.
Outstanding, outstanding. So those of you who don't know this, Sullivan University is in like the top 2 or 3 schools in the world for this particular thing. So this young lady right here is going to be is chef or baker? Which is the word you would prefer? Baker. All right. She's going to be baker extraordinaire. Is there anything else you want to share?
She was accepted into all of them.
Oh, she got accepted into all those great schools. Chose Sullivan. How about that?
Yeah.
Mama had to testify there a little bit, didn't she? So we love Remy and her family, and many of you guys know some of the things they've had to go through in the last year and a half, and so we're just so excited that God's really been present with them, and she has just worked her behind off and done such a good job, and we're excited about where your life goes, girl, and you should be excited about it as well. So can we pray for you? Let's all pray for Remington. Come here, girl. Jesus, thank you for Remington, and Lord, I pray that you would continue to fill her faith with joy. I pray that you continue to grow her and mature her and show her all the good things that you are. Lord, in the process, I pray that she would see reflectively from you all the good things that you've put in her, all the things that in her reflect you and show you, all the parts of your image that she has been created in, and the way that you are redeeming and bringing great, great future into Remington's life. We pray for her relationships, for her friendships. We pray for her siblings. We pray for her mom. We just ask, Lord, that you would help this transition over the next year work wonderfully and that it would be filled with positive things from you. In your name we pray. Amen. Remington, I don't have it on me, but we are at the church would like to give you a really nice study Bible, a new one that we've gotten for you, and so we'll get that to you this afternoon, okay? All right, you can go. I'll take that back. So we also have another group. We're doing lots of fun stuff today. So we have another group of folks here with us, and it's probably a little abnormal for us to bring folks who don't attend here and bring them up stage and have you guys all point at them and take pictures and that kind of thing. But this group of teenagers has been extremely influential in my life over the last year. So I'd like to ask the Livingston Central chess team if you guys would join me up front. They're all like, are you going to make me do this really? Yeah, I am. Come on. Come on. So you should know, Jim, you coach. Is it normal to be bad at something but maybe decent at coaching it?
Yeah, I coach a game that I've never been able to play.
Okay, he coaches a game he's never been able to play. Me too. I am the worst chess player on this stage, okay? To be very clear. On a given day, anybody on this stage some of them beat me with their eyes closed and they could give me their queen and both bishops and still win, but some of the folks on this stage are still categorized as a beginner in the sense that they've been playing this game for less than a year. And everybody on this stage has had wins at scholastic competitions. Many of the folks on this stage have had wins at regional and state tournament levels. These students came into my life a year ago when Jackson was seeking to play chess. You have to have 2 students to play in order to call it a team. You need 4 on a team if you're going to win anything. And so we just started asking around, and we found out that during COVID, a lot of students picked up games like chess because they were at home and they were bored out of their mind, and they wanted something to do hands-on or online through chess.com. And little by little, God just kind of put some stuff together. So anyway, I have gotten to spend about 3 hours, 2 days a week for the last year with this group of students, and I'm really impressed with them, and I love you guys, and I'm thankful that you got to be here with us today. You are our guests. This afternoon, they're going to be joining the rest of our teenagers, and we are going to eat Pizza Inn, and then we are going bowling, and who knows what kind of fun we'll get ourselves into this afternoon. So that's right. So church, thank you for being a blessing to them, and thank you guys for being a blessing to me. And I think in that, these folks have heard a lot about you over the last year. So we just want to thank you for coming today. For your parents came with you, that's awesome. Thank you for being here. So would you guys help me welcome these guys with us? You good? Sup, Carlos? All right, Miss Betty, I'm going to take a sip of this water that you gave me to reconnect here. Would you guys pray with me? Lord, we trust you. And I'm asking, Lord, that you help me to do a good job today. I really, really, really want to make sure that the scripture that we're looking at and that ultimately the things that we're dealing with are handled well. This is an important day, and we trust you with that. In your name we pray. Amen. Does anybody have a hard time trying to figure out how to communicate with someone who believes different things than you do? Like people who just see the world differently than you do. I think maybe culturally we were better at this when I was younger. I don't think we're as good at it now as we used to be. I'll give you what I mean. We used to live in something called a bell curve world. Who remembers the bell curve? Do they still use bell curves in grading in high school? Like the kid who scores the highest ruins the bell curve for everybody else? No. So the idea of a bell curve is that ultimately, philosophically, is that the middle is the best place to be. The middle is where most people are. The middle is kind of what you expect from people. And so it's from a bell curve world, for instance, that we say a C is average, Whereas often now times people go, a C? Oh no, C's not good at all. You got to have an A in order to be good, right? So there's this world. So what happened is, in that world, everything culturally kind of leaned itself toward the middle. Those of you who remember voting for things in the 60s, 70s, 80s, maybe early 90s, remember that the politicians who got elected were typically the ones in the middle, typically the ones that were toward the center. You wanted if you wanted to vote conservative, you wanted a conservative guy who didn't also hate liberals, and the other way around. And so over time, specifically in our world in the last 20 years, it's become what's called a well curve instead of a bell. So now, culturally speaking, it feels like the worst place to be is the middle, and everybody rushes to the edges. So you end up with folks who were extremely far on this side or extremely far on that side. And what really happens is that politically, socially, religiously, it widens the aisle in between the two extremes, and it makes it to where, for whatever reason, people don't typically talk well with those who disagree with them about things. And so things move from conversations to arguments pretty quickly. And people start off not as conversational, but as argumentative, right? And this happens probably as much in the church and in the Christian world as anywhere else. It's a tendency among guys who do what I do or leaders in the church oftentimes is we start off our conversation with those who disagree with us and we turn it into an argument with our first sentence, right? Like, well, I just can't imagine somebody believing that. They sound stupid to me. Okay, well, now you have an argument. There you go. That's where it begins. And all of a sudden, things get very blurry. It's hard to see truth. It's hard to know what's right. It's hard to know what's real. The series that we've been in the last few weeks is called Blurred. And what we're ultimately doing is we're trying to find out how to position ourselves and fashion ourselves in a biblical way that helps us to see not just truth for what truth is, but helps us to see people for who people are. So that in the long run, instead of simply representing someone as they're either on my team or they're not on my team, like that kind of extreme thing, where we try to find clarity in what it is that God is doing as he is drawing people to the same team, okay? That's and ultimately, by the way, it's not my team and it's not your team. It's his team. He's drawing people to his team. And he does so from all walks of life, from all different perspectives and things. As we see God building his church, his kingdom, he does so as he wishes with people that he invites and he calls, and we're the ones who have to figure out how to get along in the process of all those things. Today, we are in the end of the book of Acts. We are in two different stories where the Apostle Paul is going to give his testimony of how Jesus reached him, okay? 2 weeks ago in this series, we actually went through the original text where it actually happened, where we saw Saul, the name he went by most of the time then, we saw him encounter Jesus in a powerful way. What's happening now is years have gone by. He's now standing in front of people, so that you know, who disagree with him about almost everything he has to say. And he's communicating with people who are on the other side of the aisle, people who are not on his team, so to speak. And he's talking to them about all that Jesus has done for him. Now, we're going to go through two different examples of this. In Acts chapter 22, he's talking to a more generic group of people. And then in Acts chapter 26, he's standing before King Agrippa in a more formal situation. And once again, he walks people through exactly why he decided to become a Christ follower, okay? And why he thinks other people should consider that as well. So let's jump right in to Acts chapter 22. I'll read a little bit of it and we'll kind of walk through and talk about this. Acts 22, 6 and following says this, and you can read on the screen. If you've got your own Bible, open it up, flip there. It's great to go on. If you're going to use your phone like I do, that's a good thing as well. Let's read it together. As I was on my way and drew near Damascus about noon, this is Saul talking, okay? Also known as Paul, same guy, okay? About noon, a great light from heaven suddenly shone around me. And I fell to the ground and I heard a voice saying, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? Now, by the way, I had this planned. I decided not to do it. I have this really big spotlight, and it's used for hunting at night and that kind of thing. And it's like really, really painful if it gets shined in your eyes. And I had it. It's in my car right now. I brought it fully charged. And my thought was, at this moment, I'm just going to turn it on and like blind people. Doesn't that sound fun? Take the people you don't like and like just stay there. No, I started thinking, that might be a bit of a distraction, and it might be even more fun to just tell you that I almost did it instead of saying that I was going to do it. The idea is to remind us that this all started with God getting the attention of someone who did not want to give their attention. Students, you guys ever in a room where a teacher's teaching and somebody doesn't really want to pay attention? Absolutely not, right? Always. At Livingston Central, everybody's always focused, right? Always paying. Todd, you've taught teenagers a lot, man. You ever had one that just didn't want to pay attention? Of course not. Our youth group here is perfect in every way, right? They always, that's who Saul was. Saul was the guy that Jesus had been reaching out to, and he's just not paying attention. He's got his earbuds in, he's walking, he's listening to the music that he wants to, he's looking at the ground, his hat's pulled down. These are all metaphors, this is not real, but just the kinds of things where he's just not listening, he's not paying attention. And so what does Jesus do? Jesus brings out the 1,000,000 candle watt spotlight, shines it in his face to the point that it literally blinds him and drops him to his knees in a supernatural way. That's what happens in this story. So the statement is, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? That's the voice of God speaking to him. And Saul says to them, so he's telling the story years later to people who don't necessarily believe what he's saying, okay? He's telling the story, and he says, who are you, Lord? And by Lord there, he just means person who's stronger than me and just knocked me down with a beam of light. Who are you, sir? Who are you, man in charge? Who are you, person more powerful than me? Who are you? And he said to me, this is what Saul says Jesus said, I am Jesus of Nazareth, whom you are persecuting. Now, we've mentioned this already. From Saul's perspective, he was persecuting the people who followed Jesus, not necessarily Jesus directly. But Jesus says, no, if you come after them, you come after me. You are persecuting me when you harm them. That's what Jesus is saying. And in verse 9, he says, now those who were with me, they saw the light, but they did not understand the voice of the one who was speaking to me. Okay? And I said, what shall I do, Lord? And the Lord said to me, again, Saul saying, this is what happened to me. Lord, he said, rise and go to Damascus. And there you will be told all that you are appointed to do, or all that I'm going to, in other words, I'm going to use you. There are things set in motion already. When you get to where you're going, I will let you know what that is, okay? That's an important fact and thought for us. You see, this world, as a Christ follower, our role is to follow. That's what we do, follow. And it's an important thing for us to get in mind, because I think oftentimes we forget that and we kind of float instead of follow. Here's what I mean by that. I have a friend that lives in North Carolina. He loves to fish, and that sounds nice, okay? But he loves to fish out of a canoe. Does this body look like it's meant to spend a lot of time in a canoe? Here's what he likes to do. He likes to take this canoe. It's about 16 foot long. It's huge. It's a 3-man canoe, because I want to spend all day with the same 3 guys, no restroom, and a boat. He likes to put the canoe in at the top, like upstream. And then that morning, earlier, he parks another truck like 20 miles downstream and leaves it somewhere. And then he gets in the canoe, and for the most part, all he does is float. He just floats. Now, he fishes, he's catching fish. We weren't keeping fish, which is the best part about fishing, is catching fish and then eating fish. But he was catching the fish and throwing them back in, and we just floated all day. No focus. We weren't paying attention. We weren't watching. Every now and then we would hit something, and he would have to get the oar out and push us off of the rock or whatever. Just kind of floating. it was senseless. It was mindless. It didn't require any attention. It was just something we did. That's what I'm using. It sounds nice. Some of you are like, I would love to do that this afternoon. What's your friend's name? Where does he live? How do I get in touch with him? Like, some of you would love that. It's not a bad image. But when we come to Christ following, our role is to follow him, not just to float. And by that I mean, we need to be paying attention. He's giving us direction. He's giving us guidance. He's speaking to us in different ways. And if we're not paying attention, then we will simply float through life instead of actually following him in the midst of that life. Saul is hearing this now. I need you to follow me. Go where I say go. Do what I say do. And when you get there, I will reveal to you more details of what's going to happen next. Okay, that's ultimately what's going on. So after that, the next verse, in verse 11, Saul says, and since I could not see because of the brightness of that light, I was led by the hand of those who were with me and came into Damascus. So his buddies get him to the destination so that he can find out what's next. In verse 12, and one man named Ananias, he's a devout man according to the law, well spoken of by all Jews that lived there. He came to me, and standing by me, he said to me, Brother Saul, receive your sight. And at the very hour I received my sight, and I saw him. I saw Ananias. And he said, the God of our fathers appointed you to know his will, to see his righteous one, or the righteous one, and to hear a voice from his mouth. For you will be a witness for him to everyone of what you have seen and what you have heard. And in verse 16 he says, and now why do you wait? Rise and be baptized, washing away your sins, calling on his name. I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on this particular topic, but to clarify, this idea of obedience and reaching out to Jesus, these things go hand in hand. The idea of calling out to his name and doing the action he's told me to do, in this particular instance, is baptism. Those things go hand in hand. It's not that just being baptized washes away sins. It's that trusting Christ in his name in the midst of those things, and baptism becomes this visual for him washing away our sins. So that's a reality that we need to catch on to. On down in verse 21 and 22 says, and he said to me, go, for I will send you far away to the Gentiles. A little background. These are Jewish folks. Okay, Gentiles would be, from their perspective, anybody that's not a Gentile, anybody that's not a Jew, okay? In other words, think about this. Do you know that we all, whether we want to or not, even if we try really hard not to, we all have those people in our life, like those people that are, for whatever reason, different than us. We don't understand them. Even if you're someone who prides yourself on being completely inclusive and welcoming and loving all people at all times, those people are the ones who don't. The ones who you think, they don't welcome everybody. They're not inclusive. They're, like even if it's like, we all have those people. We need to learn how to deal with our own perspective and our idea about that and how we handle that. But he's saying to Saul, I'm going to send you to live among those people, the people who are different than you in every way. I'm sending you among them. And then he says in verse 22, up to this word, they listened to him. Then they raised their voices, the people he's been talking to, and they said, away with such a fellow from the earth, for he should not be allowed to live. Okay, so let me keep this in mind again. So he's telling people who are similar to him, who are like from the same background, from the same heritage, they're all Jewish folks. He's telling them, God has brought me into the right place to know Jesus so I can be sent to go reach Gentiles. And they're like, nope, stepping out, have no interest in that. This guy is loony. Get rid of him. Not loony like Mike Looney, but loony like Looney Tunes. This guy is loony. Get rid of him. We don't want him around here. He does not deserve to live. Now, from our perspective, it's so easy to be kind of judgmental of those Jews, like, what is wrong with them, man? They're so mean. Like, why would they care if he wants to take good news to people who disagree with them? Well, they came from a world that was very much designed around the people they were either in or out, people with either right or wrong. And in the midst of all that, the Jewish folks were people who kept themselves very separate from everybody else. And so the idea of one of ours wants to go reach those who are different than us and bring them into our group, they were not at all okay with that. Now, It's easy for us to go, man, what is wrong with them? Such a horrible attitude. But at the same time, aren't we tempted to do that? Aren't we tempted to think, okay, that behavior is strange. Like that person is odd. Like I don't know about it. I feel strange. It's a reality. I'm not picking on us or putting us down. I'm just saying it's a reality when people have some sort of aversion to things that seem completely other in their life. And that's what the Jewish folks are feeling right here in the midst of this. So here's what's happening in the life of Saul. Saul has been a man who lived his life specifically focused on protecting precepts or principles. In other words, things that he believed to be right. He's protecting those things. These are the things that are right. This is my perspective. This is my idea. This is what I believe. This is my ideology. And I will go to war with anyone who differs from that ideology. I want people to see the world the way I see the world, okay? And what's happening is that Jesus is turning him from someone who at the very top of priorities puts protecting precepts and principles. And he's turning Saul into someone who still believes a lot of precepts and principles, has strong commitment to those things, but the priority from that goes from here to here, and the new top priority is that Saul is now someone who is promoting a person in Jesus Christ. He's promoting this person. He's speaking to people who don't agree with him about all his precepts and principles. He's talking to people who live in a different worldview with a different thought and different religions and different perspectives. But what he's doing is not going there trying to say, here are the 20 things that you have to believe about the world in order to be on my team. No, he's going there saying, this is Christ. And I want you to know who he is. And I want you to have a chance to know him because he has a plan to do something beautiful in your world. This is the change in mission for Saul. I've always been a fan of Saul, and I'm going to say something kind of weird. Like I even have a level of respect for him before his conversion. And here's what I mean by that. Like he believes in something and he gives himself to it completely. Like to me, there's something impressive about a person who's just passionate and driven, and they see something as being all important, and so they just every priority in their life bows to that thing that they see as the most important thing. Like I kind of get that. But how amazing is it when Jesus goes, time out. I love your devotion here, buddy, but you have the wrong priority. Because instead of promoting all these specific laws and rules and details, what you need to be promoting is me. The Son of God died on the cross, risen from the grave to bring peace and joy and forgiveness to the world. Tell the world about me, Saul. And all of a sudden, things begin to shift. And I just think this is great. Something we have to keep in mind is that, and this is probably the most important thing I'll say today, Jesus' mission is to redeem people to everlasting life with the Father. His mission is to redeem people to everlasting life in the Father, okay? His mission is to redeem people to everlasting life with the Father, which means that even when people come across as, no matter what, no matter how you define this, okay? But even when people are those people, they're still people. And they're the people that Jesus has set himself on mission to redeem to everlasting life with the Father. We can't see people as less than people if we're going to follow the mission of Jesus. Am I making sense? Now this is hard because again, for the last 15, 20 years, we've all lived in this well-curved world where here's what happens. Here's what happens, is that oftentimes when someone from, let's say, the conservative side of those extremes, when they say something that seems to show some sort of compassion or love for people on the other side of the very wide aisle, all of a sudden it's tempting for those in the same camp to go up, you're over there with them now, and all of a sudden now it seems like the pressure is that you have to pick a side and make a fight, and I just don't believe that's the biblical approach. It's not Jesus' approach. So let me tell you this. If I could just let you into my own journey and walk with the Lord over the past few weeks. I've met with a couple of our elders, and I've said, guys, I'm struggling with something because, and I explained this whole Bell and Well thing to them, and I said, I feel like I'm not picking fights like I should. Like there's got to be some sort of fight I'm supposed to pick, because I typically don't pick fights. Now when I'm younger, if you get on YouTube, and please don't, but like you go back, you can find a time when I picked lots of them, and then I lost some of them, and I realized it's not smart to always pick fights that you're not ready to handle. So I really calmed and relaxed and tried, and then I started thinking about it. But here's what I believe the Lord's telling me. It is time to let passion drive us. But we have to make sure that that's the right passion in the right way with the right things, because man, just picking a fight doesn't mean you're right. And you pick the wrong fight, you have passion in the wrong direction, you end up Saul before his conversion, doing all kinds of damage instead of bringing about the kind of joy and peace that Jesus wants from us. So here, so that you know, is one of those fights I want to pick, one of those passions that for me seems absolutely true, is we can stand firmly against things that we know to be or believe to be bad, like sin. We can stand firmly. We don't have to budge on that an ounce. But what we can't do is categorize people who disagree with us on those opinions as if they are less than people. And Jesus' mission is to redeem people to eternal life with the Father. Make sense? I was doing a podcast the other day. I'm not going to tell you what the particular sin topic was because I don't want to get everybody's mind on one thing or the next. But I was doing a podcast. I was on stage with two other leaders, and it was a friend of mine who runs this podcast, but I didn't realize he kind of set me up a little bit set me up. Here's what I mean he did. He sat me in the middle. There were three people. We were talking about a particular topic that's related to a particular sin in our culture, okay? The person on my right was extremely opinionated, like, you know what I mean? Like really opinionated. And he used big words that sounded really mean, right? The person on my left was a very sweet lady who was trying to be very cautious because there were people in her life who were actively involved in this particular thing, and she didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and she didn't want to tear up her family. So in other words, I had somebody who was like, you know, and then I had somebody else who's like, you know, and I'm in the middle, right? And so someone would say this really big, hard thing, and then they would take the camera and go, Pastor Brad, what do you think about this? You know, like, oh my gosh, the tension is so, like you could cut it. And so they said, here's what they said. The question to me was, what do you think about those people? Literally, that's the sentence. What do you think about those people? And I didn't know what to say other than Jesus told me to love all people. Loving doesn't mean agreeing with. So if you want my straightforward answer about what I think about those people, what you need to understand is that in all the power that exists in me, I'm going to do everything I can to love all people. But what they really wanted was like a little 30-second clip, you know, that you could pull out and go, Brad says this, you know, like, and then and everybody's clicking on it and everybody's excited and nobody's listening to the whole story. Like, that's because we live in this well-curved world where everybody wants to push everything to the edges and get extreme on both sides. And Jesus is simply standing here in the middle going, I want to draw you to me and I want to teach you what's true. And when you walk with Jesus and you follow Jesus and you know Jesus, then yeah, there are going to be principles and priorities and precepts that he brings up where he teaches you truth, and those things are valuable and important and good, and like morality and all those, that's valuable and important and good, but none of it erases the definition of who is a people, a person. And Jesus came to redeem people. Now let's talk about the word redeem for a second. Do you know what it means that he came to redeem? This This would be fun, okay? Do you know that before your conversion, before the grace of God in your life, before the forgiveness of God, before the work of Jesus on the cross in your life, do you know that you are the biggest those people on the planet from God's perspective? Now, it may not be the same issues and challenges and sins that you see in other those people, but God looks upon humanity and sees brokenness. He also sees his image that he created us in, but the brokenness of sin causes so much trauma in our world that he literally sends his son to die as the perfect sacrifice on the cross so that human beings have the opportunity to be redeemed. Redemption means more than forgiven. Redemption means more than just, okay, I'll let that go. That's not what he's saying. Redemption means that it's been paid for. Your sin and my sin has been paid for. Guess what? The sin of that person whose sin weirds you out so much, if they respond to the grace of Jesus, then their sin has been paid for. It has. This has been a fun thing for me, and hanging out with teenagers has been really helpful to me too. One of the things that I'm really learning is that there are things about me that make people cringe. Did I use that word correctly? See, I did. Okay, good. Did you know that about you? Like, there are things about you that make other people go, oh my gosh, why did they do that? There are, like it's so easy to see that stuff in other people. Like, I know all the people who make me cringe. Like, ugh, what is that? But then I'm just learning and realizing that there are things I do that make people go, that's strange. Why did he do that? Why does Brad send so many group texts? You can laugh loud. What is with him in group texts? He loves group texts. Why is he doing this? It's so weird, you know? There are more, believe me. That's the most like one that other people can laugh at. Well, there are others. We just have to remember that, listen, one of the reasons God wants Christians to remain humble is so that we don't forget that our sin is as diabolical as anybody else's. And that it cost as much of Jesus' blood to forgive me as it did to forgive the person who I think is the wackiest, strangest, most odd other person in the world. And when we have that perspective, and we remember that Jesus' mission is to redeem people to everlasting life with the Father, then all of a sudden we have the opportunity to look into the eyes of someone who, from our perspective, is one of those people, whatever that means to you, and realize, you know what, that may be right, but this isn't about the way I feel around this person. This is about the way Jesus has acted on behalf of this person, and therefore the story we get to tell is one of redemption, one of grace, and one of hope and peace into eternity with Christ. As people respond to him, recognizing his grace and his offer of forgiveness and responding with faith, which means not just, yes, Jesus, thank you for forgiving me, but like Saul has done in this passage, yes, Lord, I will live for you. I will follow you. Whew, that was fun. Ephesians 6:12 tells us that we are not fighting against people. That's not who we're fighting against. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. So what we have to recognize is that in his past life, Saul got it wrong. And sometimes we do too. Got it wrong. That they wanted to fight against people. And that's not at all who we fight against. In fact, if you don't read the Bible much, you wouldn't maybe have known this, but the writer of Ephesians, guess who? Saul, otherwise known as Paul. Okay, same guy who later says, guess what? We're not fighting against people. That's not really the battle that we should be in. I got it wrong. I fought against people. Jesus showed me the truth. It's time to battle if we battle against things that are affecting and hurting and harming people. Scripture goes on. So this is a great story, by the way. A pastor was doing an interview with a group of folks who were not believers. And in this particular one I saw, he asked one of those folks who was very active, knew a lot of Christians, and said, how would you describe a Christian? And this is what the lady said. She said, Christians are people who don't have any questions. And people without questions think they have all the answers. And I thought, wow, I really hope that's not who she thinks we are, but that's definitely. And here's what happens if we don't watch out. If we let ourselves be framed in that way where we think, we have all the answers, therefore we don't have any questions, therefore we know what everybody else should think and do at all times, then we end up, whether we say it or not, the temptation from below is to go, man, those people are ignorant, or those people are stupid, or those people are evil. And we are easily capable in that moment of dehumanizing someone and stop thinking of them as a person. And Jesus' mission is about coming to redeem persons or people to eternal life with the Father. The flip side of that is true as I've interviewed and listened to people, as I find out that oftentimes people who are outside of Christianity or far from, they have a bigger problem with what they think we think of them. Let me say that again, okay? They oftentimes have a bigger problem with what they think we think of them than they do about the truth that we were hoping to share with them. Does that make sense? Sometimes people have a bigger problem with what they think we think of them. One of my most fun stories to tell is about my friend named Nikki. She lives in Paducah. Nikki's not a believer. Nikki is very intelligent, like very intelligent. And she is very good at arguing with people who are Christians. And another friend of mine, thought it would be funny one day at the coffee shop. This was in 2005 or 2006. I was working on my dissertation and I was studying a lot. And this friend named Gretchen, she said, hey, I want you to meet Nikki. And then I sat down at the coffee shop, one of those round tables that only two people can sit at, I sat down with Nikki. Nikki has her laptop out. I opened my laptop. The room was full. That's why I was sitting here. And our friend Gretchen goes to Nikki. She goes, Brad's my pastor. And then walks off. What a setup, right? Like she really set me up. So Nikki, again, who I would call a friend, Nikki looks at me and goes, so are you going to tell me that if I don't follow Jesus as my Lord and Savior, I'm going to die and burn in hell for eternity? That was the first sentence. And I said, well, I wasn't going to bring that up on the first date. And she laughed like you laughed. And we just started talking, okay? We just started talking. And to this day, we still talk a couple times a year. She is not walking with the Lord. That's not something she's currently interested in. But one of these days, my hope and prayer is that she does. When we have talked, here's what I found. I found that this statement was very true for her. That she wasn't automatically arguing with the Christian faith at all. She wasn't arguing. She wasn't like standoffish. She had not built a wall around herself against the ideas of grace and faith and trust and truth. Like she hadn't done that. But for whatever reason, she's been lied to so many times about what Christians really believe about her. Or maybe this is worse. A lot of Christians have acted against their own faith and treated her in the ways that make those statements not really a lie. To the point where she had her walls built not around biblical, true Christian faith. She had her walls built around people who claim to be representing it and are doing it very badly. Doing it very badly. Those people often have a bigger problem with what they think we think about them than they do with the truth that we are hoping to share with them. Again, Jesus' mission is to redeem. When you realize we're all those people, right? Every one of us are. Jesus' mission is to redeem those people to everlasting life with the Father. That's what he's doing. 1 Peter 3:15 says, but in your hearts honor Christ the Lord as holy, always being prepared to make a defense to anyone who asks for an open reason or for a reason for the hope that's in you. Yet do I with gentleness and respect. So in other words, he's saying to us, be ready to talk to people about Jesus. Be prepared, be ready, and do it in a way that is gentle and respectful. Those are not hard words to understand, like gentle and respectful. These are important things. This is kind of the thing happens to me all the time. Now, there are some fairly well-known pastors who love to yell and people love to watch their YouTube videos. Like they just get, like they're angry about, it seems like their tone is angry about everything. And people are like, hey, man, there's this pastor, he seems really cool. He's angry, but like what's going on? And I'm like, okay, listen, I don't necessarily disagree with the words that are coming out of the man's mouth. But I really disagree with the tone with which those words are being shared, because over and over and over, the scripture tells us gentle and respectful. Gentle and respectful. It's important for us as a church. If we're looking, Woodlawn, for our niche, for who we are, for a part of understanding our identity in this culture and in this community, is that we are going to tell the truth in love to people we care about, even if they really disagree with us, and we're going to do it gently and respectfully, but we're also going to do it honestly. Does that make sense? Paul addresses a room now in the second part. We're jumping to chapter 26. He's addressing a room that are full of people who are those people in his world. They are completely other. They are Gentiles. They are outside of this. He's talking to a king, a governor, and a royal court. I say they're Gentiles. That's not really. They're kind of a blended of Jewish and Gentile worlds. But he's speaking to them, a king, a governor, and a royal court. And in chapter 26, he says this. I myself was convinced that I ought to do many things in opposing the name of Jesus Christ. This is Saul talking, okay? And I did so in Jerusalem. I not only locked up many of the saints in prison after receiving authority from the chief priests, but when they were put to death, I cast my vote against them. In other words, when we were killing people for believing different things than us and teaching different things than we teach, I agreed with those killings. That's what he's saying, okay? He said, before I met Jesus, he said, I punished them often in all the synagogues and tried to make them blaspheme. In other words, I tried to make them do something that I could then legally punish them by death with. That's what I was trying to do. And in raging fury against them, I persecuted them even to foreign cities. Do you see how the Bible is juxtaposing patience and peace here with raging fury? Like this is important for us to see as we think about tone. As we ask the question, how should we deal with those who disagree with us about some of the major things in life? How do we do that? How do we handle disagreement with those who see the world very differently than we do? How are we supposed to handle that? I'm not asking you to shout out an answer, but just think about it for a second. Anybody feel they've got that one figured out yet? Like, anybody think, I know exactly how to deal wonderfully with people who disagree with me? It's not easy, is it? It's a tough question to ask. Ephesians 4 gives us a little hint. It says, so that we may no longer be children tossed to and fro by the waves and carried about by every wind of doctrine, by human cunning, by craftiness in deceitful schemes. Rather, we should, speaking the truth in love, he says, speaking the truth in love, we are to grow up in every way into him, who is the head, into Christ, from whom the whole body, joined and held together by every joint with which it is equipped. When each part is working properly, it makes up the body and it makes it grow so that it builds itself up in love. So the first piece of advice that we're given is to speak the truth in love. This is the tension. It's a tension I deal with, and I think it's a tension you deal with. What do I love more? The argument in my head or the person I'm talking to? What do I love more? The argument in my head, like my opinion, or the person I'm talking to? I think it's wonderful that someone would have a biblical opinion that's derived from scriptural truth and guided by the voice of God in their life. But even in the midst of that, when we are debating or discussing with someone who sees it differently than us, we need to make sure that we remember what the scripture said earlier, that our battle is not with flesh and blood, and we are to speak the truth in love. Those two things don't have to cause division. I can talk to someone, you can talk to someone who sees the world very differently, and I can still speak lovingly to them, even if the things I'm saying are a great challenge to the way they see the world. And even if the things they're saying are a great challenge to the way I see the world, if I live in the confidence and the security of knowing that Jesus has me with his grace and his mercy, then I don't have to feel this inner trauma that I have to win every fight or win every battle. I can simply speak the truth in love. And in doing so, help people move forward. In Acts 26, as Saul continues his story, he says, in this connection, I journeyed to Damascus with the authority, the commission of the chief priest. In other words, I was going there to kill people, to arrest people, to get them. I was doing that. And he says, at midday, O king, I saw on the way a light from heaven, brighter than the sun, and that shone around me and those who journeyed with me. And when we had all fallen to the ground, I heard a voice saying to me in the Hebrew language, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? It is hard for you to kick against the goads. That means, why are you continually doing this thing that makes no sense? It's hard for you to kick against the goads. And I said, who are you, Lord? And the Lord said, I am Jesus who you are persecuting. And again, he says, but rise and stand upon your feet, for I have appeared to you for this purpose, to appoint you as a servant and a witness to the things in which you have seen me, and in those in which I will appear to you, delivering you from your people and from the Gentiles to whom I am sending you, to open their eyes so that they may turn from darkness to light and from the power of Satan to God, that they may receive forgiveness of sins and a place among those who are sanctified by faith. Paul was saved and then sent. I told you earlier that if we don't watch out, we will become Christ followers who float instead of follow. And here's another way of describing that same thing. I'm asking you, to whom are you sent? To whom are you sent? It's a question I don't think a lot of us ask, but it's a question that we need to ask. See, I don't know about everybody else. I was raised in a culture that kind of, nobody ever said this was true, but it just kind of felt this way, and that was that God saves everybody just to go to heaven, but then he calls a few of them to some sort of ministry, and those are the ones he sends to people groups to do stuff. So in other words, you could be a Christian and not be sent. The pastors were sent. The missionaries were sent. Everybody else is just kind of supposed to come to church and soak. You know, like soak it up. Like just be here. You're supposed to show up. Show up, smile, give a little money, sing a little song, go back home, do the same thing next week. And I'm telling you folks that is the furthest thing from the truth. Saul is not some great leader that got a calling from God that's so much more than anybody else will ever receive. No, Saul is a Christ follower who God used in a miraculous way to do great things because he recognized that he was sent and he went. And I'm wondering, I'm asking, because I don't know the answer to this question, but we got nearly 100 people in this room. Like we got like better, you know, like that's rounding up, but you know, like get there. And so Jackson's telling me numbers in the back. I don't know the exact number. There's a lot of folks in here. And what I'm saying is, what if all of us in the room who are Christ followers started recognizing that we are sent? We are following Christ as Christ goes toward and after those people, and we are following him towards some of them because we have been sent, just like Saul was sent. And just like over and over in the scripture, we see other people sent. I'm asking you to ask yourself this hard question: to whom am I sent? I'll give you some hints. I bet you're thinking about family members that you have who are not believers. I bet you're thinking about neighbors that you have who you're thinking of them right now, like maybe this would be helpful to them, or coworkers around you, you know, or maybe, maybe kids who play the same sport as your son, you know, like this is to whom we are sent. God wants us to be there for people and to follow him as he pursues them so that when needed, we're there, right? We're there. as we end up this whole message, okay, as we finish up, Saul says, "Therefore, O King Agrippa, I was not disobedient to the heavenly vision, but declared first to those in Damascus, and then in Jerusalem, and throughout all the regions of Judea, and also to the Gentiles, that they should repent and turn to God, performing deeds in keeping with their repentance." In other words, respond to the grace of Jesus, love Jesus, and then act like it. Right? That's what he's saying. "For this reason, the Jews seized me in the temple, and they tried to kill me. To this day, I have had the help that comes from God. And so I stand here testifying both to small and great, saying nothing but what the prophets and Moses said would come to pass. That the Christ," and this is the gospel, listen to me, this is the message, that the Christ, this is Jesus, the Christ must suffer, and that by being the first to rise from the dead, he would proclaim light both to our people and to the Gentiles. Isn't it amazing that the word he uses here that means forgiveness and peace and everything else is light, and it is light that God used to grab his attention from the beginning? Okay, maybe I should have brought the spotlight. That would have been cool. So I want to ask you the question, how do we proclaim light to people? How do we proclaim light to people? The fact that a friend of mine who's not a believer thought that what a pastor would do when they sit down to have a cup of coffee, the very first thing that pastor is going to say is that you're hellbound and going to burn for eternity. Like the fact that that's what she thought I was going to say to her scares me for my kind and for others who have spoken in such a way. Because that is declaring darkness. That is not proclaiming light. It's not the same thing. It's a true statement. But in that conversation would not have been the wise statement. Okay? Here's what I want you to get. God did not grab Saul and stick his face into hell for a moment and say, "Look what's coming for you." No. God blinded Saul with light that was bright and the voice of hope and truth, and said to him, "Follow me. Stop persecuting me and follow me." There's got to be a way, you guys, that we as a church proclaim light, because I don't know if you're noticing it like I am, but this world needs light. Let's start with our own community. Our community needs light. You don't have to walk very far to find families who need light. Find children who need light, married couples who need light, single moms who need light, grandparents raising their grandchildren who need light. That's what we do. That's who we are. We proclaim light. Sometimes people say, "Brad, why are you taking all this so serious and so focused?" And I'm like, because it's all that matters in the whole world, is that the grace and love of Jesus, the light that comes from heaven, is proclaimed to those who need it so badly. Why would we let anything else be a priority? How do we proclaim light to people? And there's just two things that take 2 minutes and I'm done. First, we have to reflect truth in what we say and do. There's never been a time before when Christians have to make sure that we're not being hypocritical. If we believe it's true, then we better live like it's true. If we say it's true, then we better design our life around that truth. Okay? If we trust God, then we should live like we trust God every day, so that when someone looks at us and they see us, they're like, "You know what? That is how he lives. That's like he believes it's true. That's how he lives." Because in that, not whatever the opposite of hypocrisy is, that actual genuineness and authenticity of your faith, when you get a chance to share truth with someone, they're going to at least know that you believe it by the way that you live. We have to reflect truth in what we say or do, but we also have to reflect redemptive love in what we say and do. Speak the truth in love. Redemptive love. We don't have the luxury of thinking someone is too far gone. Don't raise your hand, but how many in this room think there are people who thought I was too far gone? Yeah. Jesus didn't. He didn't see you as too far gone. Not to mention, quite frankly, Christians, what kind of watering down of the blood of Jesus are we doing if we think that there's a sin too great for him to forgive? Wow. Now, our world's working hard. Our world's working really hard trying to come up with new ways to do weird, strange, ungodly things. Okay? I don't know that that's really new. I think humanity has always been good at defying truth. This is a part of our problem. And it's a part of what Jesus is actively seeking to change through his death and resurrection and the redemptive love that should be shown through his church. We should reflect the truth and live authentically. And we should speak and reflect redemptive love in all that we say or do. Would you pray with me?